USCIS expands immigration scrutiny. New reviews flag anti-Americanism, tighten moral standards, and reshape U.S. labor and student trends. If you are interested in this topic, please pay attention and watch the video through to the end to get all the information. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for an upcoming video. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has announced that it will expand its review process to flag applicants for signs of anti-Americanism and anti-Semitic activity. The new scrutiny applies across all case types, including green cards, work visas, and naturalization applications. Tighter good moral character standards. Parallel to this, the Trump administration has broadened the interpretation of good moral character in naturalization cases. Immigration officers are now directed to weigh both positive contributions, such as community service, caregiving responsibilities, or steady employment, alongside negative behaviors that might be legal but socially questionable. Although rehabilitation may work in an applicant's favor, minor infractions could still trigger denials unless applicants demonstrate strong evidence of positive character. Nationwide visa holder review. In a sweeping move, the administration is also reviewing all 55 million U.S. visa holders through an expanded continuous vetting program. This process draws on law enforcement records, immigration history, social media activity, and even phone or app data collected during interviews. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced an immediate halt to worker visas for foreign truck drivers, citing safety and labor market concerns. Surge in OPT STEM participation. Despite these restrictions, international students remain a vital part of the U.S. economy. In 2024, a record 194,554 students participated in optional practical training, with 95,384 in science, technology, engineering, and math fields, a 54% jump from the previous year. International enrollment rose to 1.58 million, contributing $43.8 billion to the U.S. economy and supporting nearly 378,175 jobs. Decline in foreign-born workers. At the same time, the U.S. economy has suffered the loss of 1.2 million foreign-born workers since January. The hardest-hit industries, agriculture, construction, and hospitality, report labor shortages driving higher prices. In California, farm employment dropped 6.5%, contributing to an 8% rise in vegetable costs and a 7% increase in meat prices. Analysts warn these shortages could ripple further through the economy. Thousands face deportation. Trump targets temporary protections. Thousands face deportation danger as Trump targets temporary protections. People with temporary protected status face possible deportation, even though their home countries, including Afghanistan and Haiti, remain unsafe. Many thousands of immigrants living in the U.S. who came from certain countries regarded as risky or dangerous are at the mercy of U.S. judges and the Trump administration's agenda to slash their work authorization and protection from deportation. Since taking office, the Trump administration has announced the termination of temporary protected status for citizens of 7 of the 15 countries previously designated for shelter under this legal umbrella, with the Department of Homeland Security controversially citing improved conditions in some of those places. The 7 countries are Afghanistan, Haiti, Venezuela, Honduras, Nicaragua, Nepal, and Cameroon, plunging many TPS holders in those U.S. immigrant communities into confusion and fear, and prompting groups of individuals and advocacy organizations to head for courts to shield them, with varying degrees of success so far. On Wednesday, a federal appeals court sided with the Trump administration and halted, for now, a lower court's order that had kept in place temporary protections for 60,000 migrants from Central America and Nepal. This means that the Republican administration can move toward removing an estimated 7,000 people from Nepal whose TPS designations expired on August 5th. The TPS designations and legal status of 51,000 Hondurans and 3,000 Nicaraguans are set to expire on September 8th, at which point they will become eligible for removal from the U.S. The National TPS Alliance Group had sued, alleging that the administration's plan was unlawful. In the case of Honduras and Nicaragua, some of their nationals in the U.S. have held TPS status for over 25 years, since Hurricane Mitch caused devastating damage to both countries in the late 90s. In July, the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, said it was safe to return people to Nicaragua and Honduras. However, the United Nations said in a report that the Nicaraguan regime of co-presidents Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo has deliberately transformed the country into an authoritarian state where opposition voices are silenced and the population faces persecution and economic retaliation. And in April, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said, "The Nicaraguan regime is an enemy of humanity." Meanwhile, Honduras has the highest rate of femicides in Latin America, according to Human Rights Watch, with approximately 7 femicides per 100,000 women. And across the nation, the UN says 1.6 million people live with urgent humanitarian needs out of a population of 7 million. More than 50,000 Hondurans in the U.S. are TPS holders. Nepal was initially designated for TPS in 2015 after an earthquake disrupted and displaced millions. Noem said that there are notable improvements in environmental disaster preparedness and response capacity. Earlier this year, amid economic and political instability in the country, Nepal was experiencing violent clashes between civilians and police. The Guardian has previously reported on how the Trump administration has deported Bhutanese Nepalis who fled ethnic cleansing and are now living in a refugee camp. Meanwhile, last month, an appellate court authorized the Trump administration to end TPS for more than 8,000 Afghans and 5,000 Cameroonians. In the case of the Afghan immigrant population in the U.S., many, including some who assisted U.S. forces in Afghanistan before the botched withdrawal by the military in 2021, are already at risk of deportation. Fareshta Abbasi, Afghanistan researcher for Human Rights Watch, says anyone deported to Taliban-ruled Afghanistan could face persecution or torture. For example, on the deportation of Afghan refugees from Pakistan, we were able to document cases that, especially former government employees, once they're back in Afghanistan, they're picked up by the authorities and they're being arbitrarily detained and tortured. That's a real risk for anyone who's deported back to Afghanistan, said Abbasi. She added, "The Taliban have not only taken away the fundamental rights of women, they have taken women's autonomy as well. I've spoken to women in Afghanistan who have told me that they feel they are living in a prison. The U.S. knows that Afghanistan is not a safe country." The Department of Homeland Security has cited rising tourism as a factor in its assessment that Afghans can be deported back there, with the U.S. Federal Register's item about revoking TPS for Afghans saying, "Tourism to Afghanistan has increased as the rates of kidnappings have reduced." However, the U.S. has also issued a travel warning for Afghanistan, advising Americans not to visit the country due to civil unrest, crime, terrorism, and risk of wrongful detention. The International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for 2 Taliban leaders accused of crimes against humanity for the persecution of women and girls. An elderly British couple detained without charge after years of living in Afghanistan are in danger of dying in custody, relatives have warned. And Afghans living in or with the prospect of returning to Afghanistan who are known or even just suspected by the Taliban of having assisted U.S. or British forces, there could be in mortal danger. The U.S. Congress established TPS as part of the Immigration Act of 1990, signed by the then-President George H.W. Bush. The estimated 1 million TPS holders in the U.S. overall have not only used the program's benefits to support themselves in the U.S. workplace, but also to contribute an estimated $21 billion annually to the economy, while paying $5.2 billion in taxes, according to the advocacy group FWD.US. The Trump administration has also announced it will end TPS for Haitian immigrants living in the U.S. legally under the scheme. The U.S. Embassy in Haiti warns people not to travel to the Caribbean nation, citing kidnapping and civil unrest, as does the U.S. State Department website. While Noem acknowledged that conditions in Haiti remain dire, she said it was not in the national interest of the U.S. to continue the TPS program for Haitians. The poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, Haiti has been engulfed in political tumult since the assassination of the then-president, Jovenel Moïse, in 2021. The descent for the already unstable country into further crisis has displaced 1.3 million Haitians, according to the International Organization for Migration, and local authorities estimate that 5.7 million face food insecurity. An estimated 340,000 Haitians in the U.S. who are currently covered by TPS, a designation initially made in 2010 following the devastating earthquake. That year will no longer have this protection from deportation after September 2nd. Gerline Yosef, executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, an immigrant support group in the U.S., said some of the people already deported to Haiti are just dropped off and their family relatives don't know what happened to them. The termination of TPS is a complete unwillingness to acknowledge the humanity of these immigrants, who many of them have been in the country for over 15 years. Many of them have children who were born and raised here, Yosef said. The entire black immigrant community doesn't fit the agenda or are not deemed dignified enough or not deemed worthy enough of protection that those people need. We are at a point where they don't care how long they've been here, that they have paid their taxes, that they have businesses. Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, remains largely under gang control, and armed conflict has rendered the city inaccessible from both the north and south. Violent groups dominate the city center and surrounding areas, with only 2 districts spared, where camps for internally displaced people have multiplied, sheltering tens of thousands who have fled violence. In this parlous condition, the prospect of mass deportation from the U.S. is alarming local organizations already struggling to cope. Where will families whose homes have been burned down go? Kadia Bont, coordinator of the support group for returnees and refugees in Haiti, asked. Her organization already operates along the border between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, assisting people expelled daily back to Haiti under a crackdown by the Dominican government launched last October. Bont fears a similar wave from the U.S. would overwhelm already fragile systems. Deported Haitians won't be able to return to their families or communities. I visit the displacement camps. I see how people survive. It's inhumane. The impact will be devastating, she said, adding, there's not much hope left. It feels like we're on our own and no one is coming to help. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is reportedly eyeing Honduras and Nicaragua as places to send people who are from neither country originally but are being deported from the U.S., and has done a deal with Rwanda, and on Wednesday, with Uganda. There was uproar from many directions when the U.S. government deported, without due process, a group of people from a variety of countries to South Sudan and Eswatini this summer. That is all for today in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later in the next video.
USCIS expands immigration scrutiny, new reviews flag anti-Americanism, tightened moral standards, and reshaped U.S. labor and student trends. U.S. immigration policy is undergoing major shifts. Under the Trump administration, USCIS has expanded reviews to flag applicants for anti-Americanism and anti-Semitic activity across green card, visa, and naturalization cases. Officers must now evaluate all positive contributions like a community service and employment, and negative behaviors, even minor infractions, under stricter good moral character standard. A nationwide continuous waiting program also places 55 million visa holders under constant monitoring, drawing on records, social media, and interviews. Worker visas for foreign truck drivers have been suspended, while student participation in OPT STEM programs surged to nearly 95,400, fueling the U.S. economy despite overall declines in a foreign-born level. Meanwhile, TPS protections face rollbacks. Designation for countries like Afghanistan, Haiti, Honduras, and Nepal are ending, exposing hundreds of thousands to deportation despite ongoing violence and instability. Courts have sided with the administration, deepening uncertainty for long-time TPS holders who contribute billions in taxes and labor but now face potential removal.